You can give her the world and she'll still walk away like it meant nothing. Why? Because women don't care what you do for them. They care about who you are while you're doing it. Let's talk about why your endless efforts go unnoticed and what actually makes a woman feel you. Step 1. Emotional impact over effort. You can do everything right and still feel invisible to her. You can give her your time, your money, your help, and your loyalty, yet something inside her still feels disconnected. That's because women don't measure love by effort. They measure it by emotional impact. What matters is not how much you do, but how deeply. What you do touches her emotions. You can spend months trying to prove your worth through your actions, but if those actions don't reach her heart, they'll never hold her attention. Many men confuse effort with emotional connection. They believe consistency in doing things equals consistency in love. But effort without emotional resonance feels mechanical, predictable, and lifeless. It becomes routine, not romance. When a woman says she doesn't feel loved anymore, she's not saying you stopped doing things. She's saying those things stopped feeling meaningful. You might still take her out, still text her good morning, still pay the bills, still show up physically, but emotionally, she doesn't feel you anymore. That's the gap that destroys relationships silently. She's not asking for more work from you, she's asking for more presence, more emotional attunement, more understanding. When a woman feels emotionally understood, even small gestures become powerful. A look, a word, a simple act of awareness can mean more to her than 100 gifts. Because she's not connecting to the act, she's connecting to the energy behind it. Every man who has ever said, "I did everything for her and she still left," is unknowingly confessing that his actions lacked emotional depth. He was doing things for her, not with her. He was performing love, not expressing it. You can fill emotional emptiness with physical gestures. When your energy carries resentment, expectation, or exhaustion, she feels that more than the action itself. That's why some women disconnect even in stable, comfortable relationships, not because the man stopped trying, but because his effort became transactional. He was doing things to keep her, not because they flowed naturally from love. Women are emotionally intuitive. They read between the lines of your tone, your pauses, your silence. You might think you're doing everything to show love, but if your presence is shallow or distracted, she will feel unseen. Emotional impact requires awareness. It's when your actions align with genuine emotion. It's not about doing more, but feeling deeper. If you're helping her, do it because you want to support her, not because you're afraid to lose her. If you're giving her time, give it with full presence, no divided attention, no mental distance. Women can feel when you're emotionally absent, even when you're physically next to them. The truth is, women don't remember every favor you did or every sacrifice you made. They remember moments where they felt emotionally moved, when your words calmed their fears, when your silence made them feel safe, when your eyes showed sincerity without needing to explain. Emotional impact is built through empathy, not effort. It's when you understand what's behind her moods instead of reacting to them, when you validate her feelings instead of fixing them, when you show consistency not in doing things, but in being emotionally grounded. That's what creates trust and emotional safety, not how much you do, but how deeply you feel her world. Most men want recognition for their effort, but women crave resonance. They want to feel seen without having to explain, heard without having to repeat themselves, and valued without having to earn it. That's emotional impact. It's not about grand gestures. It's about emotional sensitivity, being aware of how your energy influences her state of mind. The most powerful men are not the ones who overextend themselves trying to please. They're the ones whose presence changes how a woman feels in the room. You can't fake that. You can't perform that. Emotional impact is felt when your words, tone, and actions all align with genuine emotion. It's when you're not trying to impress, you're simply being authentic, calm, and emotionally awake. Step 2, attention versus dust versus presence. 3. A difference between giving a woman attention and giving her presence. Most men don't understand that difference. They think being around her, texting her, liking her posts, or spending time together automatically builds emotional closeness. But attention is not the same as connection. Attention is about where your eyes are. Presence is about where your mind and energy are. You can sit right beside her, talk to her, even make plans with her. But if your mind is scattered, distracted, or emotionally checked out, she'll feel the distance immediately. Women can sense when you're physically near but mentally elsewhere. They can feel when you're listening but not truly hearing. That's why she might say, "You're here, but you're not really here." Because for her, love is not measured by proximity, it's measured by emotional presence. Presence means being fully in the moment with her. It's when your attention isn't split between her and your phone, your work, or your thoughts. It's when you're not thinking about what to say next or how to fix her problem, you're simply there, with her. That kind of presence is rare because most people live in constant distraction. They multitask emotions the same way they multitask work, but relationships don't thrive in divided focus. A woman doesn't want all your time, she wants your undivided energy when you're with her. She wants to feel that nothing else exists in that moment but her and you. That's what emotional intimacy feels like to her, not just attention, but full awareness. The difference becomes clear when a woman starts to feel unseen, even though you're doing everything right. You might be giving her compliments, spending weekends together, even trying to show affection, yet she still feels disconnected. That's because attention is about effort, but presence is about energy. Attention can be given out of obligation, presence can only come from genuine interest. When you're truly present, she feels safe opening up. She feels understood without needing to over-explain. But when your presence is missing, everything you do feels mechanical, like you're going through the motions. You can't fake presence. Your energy always tells the truth. Presence is about emotional availability. It's about showing up with your full attention without the urge to rush, judge, or fix. When she speaks, it's not about preparing your answer. It's about hearing what she's really trying to say beneath her words. It's about noticing her tone, her expressions, the silence between sentences. That's where connection lives. Women naturally read emotional cues. When you're distracted or detached, they don't interpret it as busy. They interpret it as not cared for. Over time, this emotional gap grows, and the relationship begins to feel hollow, no matter how much time you spend together. Attention feeds the surface, presence reaches the soul. A woman can get attention from anyone, from social media, from co-workers, even from strangers. But presence? That's rare. Presence makes her feel grounded, secure, and emotionally full. When a man is present, his calm energy gives her space to be herself without fear of being judged or dismissed. She doesn't have to perform or seek reassurance because his presence already gives her that emotional safety. You can't replace presence with gifts, long talks, or romantic gestures. None of those things matter if you're emotionally unavailable while doing them. Many men think being present means doing something together, watching a movie, going out, having dinner. But those things can still happen in complete emotional disconnection. True presence doesn't come from activity. It comes from awareness. It's when you look into her eyes and she feels you seeing her beyond her words. It's when your touch is intentional, not habitual. It's when your energy says, "I'm here with you, not I'm here," but thinking of something else. Women crave that level of attention because it validates their emotions and gives them security. It tells them, without words, that they matter in your world. Attention is temporary. Presence leaves an imprint. Attention can make her smile for a moment. Presence can make her trust you for life. When you're truly present, she feels emotionally seen, not because of what you say, but because of how your energy communicates care. Most relationships fall apart not because love fades, but because presence does. When your body shows up but your energy doesn't, she'll stop feeling connected. And once a woman stops feeling connected, no amount of attention will bring her back to feeling loved. Step 3. Energy speaks louder than actions. Every word you say, every gesture you make, every act of love you perform carries an energy behind it. That energy speaks louder than the action itself. You can say the right things and still make someone feel wronged. You can do everything for a woman and still make her feel unseen. That's because humans don't just react to what's done. They react to how it's done. Energy doesn't lie. It reveals your motives, your emotional state, and your level of authenticity without you ever having to explain. Women, in particular, are emotionally intuitive. They can feel when your energy is off long before you admit it. When you act out of love, peace, or confidence, your energy calms and attracts. But when you act out of fear, guilt, or need for validation, your energy repels, no matter how good your actions appear on the surface. This is why some men say, "I did everything right, but she still left." It's because doing everything right means nothing if your energy carries pressure, resentment, or insecurity. When you buy her gifts with tension in your body, she doesn't feel appreciated. She feels the weight of obligation behind the gesture. When you help her but secretly expect recognition, she doesn't feel loved. She feels your hidden expectation. When you say, I love you, but your tone carries exhaustion or frustration, she doesn't hear love. She hears the emotional imbalance underneath. Actions are surface level. Energy reveals truth. You can't hide your emotional state from someone who is deeply connected to you. She feels it in your silence, in your eyes, and even in how you breathe around her. Energy is communication without words. It's the atmosphere your presence creates. Some people walk into a room and make it lighter without speaking. Others bring heaviness, even in silence. When your energy is grounded and confident, your actions naturally feel strong and meaningful. But when your energy is anxious or desperate, even your kindness starts to feel suffocating. That's because you're not giving, you're trying to take something back in return. You're seeking reassurance, control, or validation under the guise of care. A woman can sense that instantly. You might think you're being loving, but if your energy says, please notice me or please don't leave, it no longer feels like love to her, it feels like emotional pressure. The truth is, people respond to energy before they interpret meaning. You can say something simple like, are you okay? But depending on the tone and energy, it can sound like concern or like accusation. You can say, I'm proud of you, and make someone feel genuinely seen, or make them feel like you're just trying to sound supportive. The difference isn't the words, it's the energy. In relationships, this is everything. Women pay attention to the feeling they get around you more than the logic behind your words. That's why they might pull away even when you're doing everything right, because something in your energy feels off, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. Your energy comes from your emotional alignment. When your actions are backed by calmness and truth, they carry strength. But when your actions are rooted in fear of loss, they create imbalance. You can't mask negative energy with positive gestures for long. Eventually, the truth leaks through. If you say, I'm fine, but your tone carries resentment, she'll pick up on it. If you say, it's okay, but your body is tense, she'll feel the contradiction. That emotional mismatch between your words and energy slowly erodes trust. Women feel most connected when your energy matches your message, when your words, tone, and actions all come from the same emotional space. The strongest energy is calm, confident, and grounded. It's not loud or performative, it's steady. When your energy is settled, your actions feel genuine because they're not driven by insecurity or ego. You're not trying to prove, you're simply being. That emotional stability creates safety. A woman feels more loved by the way your energy makes her relax than by the things you say or do. Energy reveals your truth. It shows whether you're acting from love or from fear, from confidence or from control. No matter how carefully you choose your words or plan your gestures, your energy will always tell the story you're trying to hide. Step 4, respect, is the real currency. Every relationship stands or falls on one foundation: respect. Love can fade, attraction can fluctuate, passion can come and go, but without respect, nothing real can survive. Respect is not about agreeing on everything or always being kind. It's about how two people value each other's individuality. For a woman, respect from a man isn't about how much he provides, protects, or praises her. It's about how he carries himself while loving her. When a man loses respect for himself, he unknowingly loses her respect too, no matter how much she once admired him. A woman cannot stay emotionally connected to a man she doesn't respect. That's why overgiving, begging for attention, or trying too hard to please always backfires. What begins as an act of love quickly turns into an act of self-abandonment, and that's the moment respect starts to die. Women are naturally drawn to strength, but strength doesn't mean dominance or arrogance. True strength is emotional stability, being calm under pressure, grounded in your values, and unwilling to compromise your self-worth for approval. When a man lives by principles, not impulses, he earns silent respect. When he speaks truth, even when it's uncomfortable, when he says no without fear of rejection, when he walks away from disrespect instead of fighting for validation, those moments leave an impression deeper than words. Women may be moved by emotion, but they are anchored by respect. A man's emotional maturity and boundaries communicate far more love than constant accommodation ever could. The problem begins when men start equating love with sacrifice. They believe that the more they give up, the more loyal or deserving they appear. But love that costs your self-respect is not love. It's emotional servitude. When you allow yourself to be treated in ways that violate your values just to keep her happy, you teach her to stop respecting you. She may appreciate your efforts temporarily, but over time, she will start to feel your weakness. That weakness doesn't make her feel secure, it makes her feel burdened. Women respect men who can say, "I love you, but I won't tolerate disrespect," because it shows emotional discipline and self-awareness. It tells her you value both her and yourself equally. Respect also shows in the way you lead emotionally. It's not about controlling her, it's about controlling yourself. It's how you respond when she tests boundaries, when she's emotional, or when conflict arises. A man who reacts impulsively, argues for validation, or chases approval shows emotional instability. But a man who remains composed and clear in his stance earns respect even in disagreement. Women notice when your actions come from strength instead of insecurity. They may not always say it, but they feel safer around men who lead with calm authority. That kind of presence doesn't need to prove worth, it radiates it. A relationship where a woman respects a man feels peaceful. She listens differently, speaks differently, and trusts differently. Respect softens her guard because it gives her confidence in your direction. She can relax into your leadership when she knows it's guided by integrity. But once she loses that respect, nothing you do can repair it until you restore your self-worth. You can't buy it back with effort or affection. You regain it only when you start living with boundaries again, when you stop chasing and start standing tall. A man who respects himself is naturally respected by others because his energy commands it without demand. Respect is also about how you treat her, not just how you treat yourself. A woman wants to feel that her emotions, opinions, and individuality matter. She may forgive mistakes, but she won't forgive disregard. When you belittle her feelings, mock her vulnerability, or dismiss her needs, you create emotional distance. Respect in love means valuing differences, not trying to dominate or diminish them. It's about recognizing her humanity, not idolizing or controlling her. When both people respect each other's dignity, communication becomes clean, attraction deepens, and emotional safety grows effortlessly. Respect is the invisible thread that holds love together long after emotions fluctuate, because it reminds both people that no matter what happens, their worth remains intact in each other's eyes. Step 5. Leadership over pleasing. There is a huge difference between being loving and being pleasing. Most men don't see the line between the two because they grow up believing that making a woman happy should be their main goal in a relationship. They're told that if they give enough, listen enough, agree enough, and sacrifice enough, she'll love them more deeply. But pleasing is not love. It's fear disguised as affection. It's the fear of conflict, rejection, or abandonment that makes a man silence his truth just to keep the peace. He starts saying yes when he means no, apologizing when he has done nothing wrong, and overextending himself in the hope of being seen as the good man. Yet, the more he pleases, the less she respects him. Because while women appreciate kindness, they don't trust weakness. And constant pleasing, no matter how well-intentioned, always reads as weakness. Leadership in a relationship is not about control or dominance. It's about direction. It's about being emotionally stable enough to guide the dynamic with clarity and confidence. When a man leads, he doesn't force, he influences through calm certainty. Leadership comes from knowing what you want, standing by your principles, and being unshaken by emotional turbulence. It's when you can hold space for both her emotions and your own without losing your grounding. Women are naturally drawn to emotional strength because it provides a sense of safety and structure. When you lead, you give her something solid to trust. But when you please, you give her nothing to lean on. Your constant need to keep her happy ends up making her feel more anxious and disconnected because she can no longer feel your direction or conviction. Pleasing energy often comes from insecurity. It's a way of saying, if I do everything right, maybe I won't lose her. But that fear itself creates the emotional imbalance that pushes her away. A woman doesn't want a man who shapes himself around her moods. She wants a man whose presence calms her moods without him even saying a word. That kind of presence only comes from inner leadership. When you're confident in your values, you don't chase validation, you set a tone that naturally earns it. Leadership is not about being rigid or unfeeling, it's about being the emotional anchor in the storm. When she's overwhelmed, she doesn't need another emotional reaction, she needs stability. Pleasers react, leaders respond. That difference changes everything. When a man leads with emotional maturity, he knows when to say no, even if it disappoints her in the moment. He understands that short-term discomfort is better than long-term resentment. Pleasers avoid conflict to keep the moment calm, but they end up creating chaos later. Leadership requires honesty, the kind that risks temporary disapproval but builds long-term respect. Women might resist strong boundaries at first, but they eventually respect and trust them because they know where you stand. When you're clear and consistent, she doesn't have to guess your intentions. That's what allows her to relax into the relationship. But when you're constantly shifting to keep her happy, she never feels emotionally safe because she senses instability behind your smile. Pleasing is rooted in the desire to be liked. Leadership is rooted in the desire to be respected. A man who leads doesn't need approval to validate his worth. He expresses love from fullness, not emptiness. He can give affection without losing his authority, show empathy without absorbing her emotions, and stay kind without becoming submissive. This balance makes a woman feel emotionally secure, not because he's perfect, but because he's consistent. A pleaser drains himself trying to earn peace. A leader creates peace by embodying it. A woman may not always agree with a leader, but she will always feel safer with him than with a man who bends to please. True leadership in love is emotional clarity, knowing when to act, when to listen, and when to stand firm. It's being a calm force that sets the emotional tone of the relationship instead of reacting to hers. When a man leads, his actions stem from conviction, not desperation. He doesn't chase validation because his sense of worth doesn't depend on how she feels in the moment. That kind of grounded energy shifts the dynamic completely. She stops testing him because she can feel his strength without him having to prove it. Leadership earns devotion where pleasing only earns temporary approval. It's not about trying to control her emotions. It's about mastering your own so deeply that your presence becomes the stability she naturally trusts. Step 6. Consistency of character. In relationships, consistency of character is one of the most powerful yet underrated qualities a man can have. It's not about being perfect, it's about being predictable in your integrity. Women don't fall for what you say once or twice. They fall for what you prove over time through your steadiness. Consistency doesn't mean being emotionless or rigid. It means being emotionally reliable, the same man in calm days and in chaos. It's the quiet strength that tells her, you can trust my word, my energy, and my intentions. Most men fail not because they lack love, but because their behavior shifts with circumstances. They show strength one day and insecurity the next, patience one moment and anger the next. This inconsistency creates emotional instability, and a woman can't feel safe in love when the person she depends on emotionally keeps changing in tone, reaction, or energy. Consistency of character is what separates men who attract short-term attention from those who earn long-term respect. When a man's actions and values stay aligned, he becomes emotionally trustworthy. Women don't just want love. They want to feel anchored in that love. They want to know that the man they wake up to emotionally is the same man who showed up yesterday grounded, self-aware, and centered. Inconsistency, on the other hand, erodes emotional safety. When your tone, effort, or attitude changes based on your mood or her reaction, it confuses her nervous system. She stops relaxing around you because she doesn't know what version of you she'll get next. Emotional inconsistency feels like instability, and instability destroys attraction faster than anything. A man's consistency of character comes from his relationship with himself. It's built on discipline, not performance. It's about being rooted in principles instead of emotions. When you know who you are, your reactions don't depend on who you're with. You can love deeply without losing your boundaries. You can show empathy without becoming emotionally reactive. A consistent man doesn't let circumstances dictate his behavior. He lets his character dictate his responses. This steadiness is what creates emotional trust. A woman can forgive mistakes. She can tolerate imperfection, but she cannot trust inconsistency. She needs to feel that your words hold weight even when she's upset, that your presence won't vanish when things get hard, and that your emotional tone won't shift because of momentary frustration. Many men underestimate how deeply women value stability. They think grand gestures or strong opinions define masculinity, but what truly grounds a woman is emotional predictability, knowing that the man she's with will not become someone else under pressure. When you're consistent, she doesn't have to walk on eggshells, test your patience, or question your loyalty. She can relax into femininity because your energy communicates reliability. This is not about never showing emotion. It's about managing emotion with maturity. A consistent man doesn't explode when triggered or withdraw when uncomfortable. He addresses conflict with clarity and returns to center without holding grudges. That balance makes a woman trust not just his love, but his leadership. Consistency also reflects emotional responsibility. When you show up the same way, regardless of her mood or your external stress, you're communicating that your sense of self is not dependent on her behavior. That emotional separation is crucial. It keeps the relationship healthy because she feels safe expressing herself without fearing emotional punishment. If your love fluctuates with her actions, she will subconsciously lose respect because your emotions become conditional. But when your character remains constant, even during conflict, she feels the depth of your integrity. You become her emotional anchor not because you control her, but because you control yourself. Consistency of character builds silent respect. It's when your word doesn't need to be repeated for it to be believed, when your presence feels calm even in chaos, and when your emotions remain rooted in clarity instead of reaction. It's what makes a woman trust your intentions without constant reassurance. When you are consistent in how you treat her, how you speak, and how you lead, she feels emotionally secure not because of promises, but because of patterns. A consistent man doesn't chase love. He creates the emotional space where love naturally grows. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means predictability in strength, stability in emotion, and loyalty to your own standards, regardless of what happens around you. So if there's one thing you take from this, let it be this. Women don't fall in love with effort, attention, or words. They fall in love with energy, presence, respect, leadership, and consistency. The kind of man who doesn't need to prove his worth because he lives it every day. You don't win her by doing more. You win her by becoming more grounded, more self-aware, more emotionally steady. When you master yourself, everything else aligns. Because the truth is, love doesn't need chasing when your character already commands respect.